Oh, I'm hearing myself. Okay. Okay. All systems running. Things are up. It's live. It's alive. Welcome to Big If True. I'm your host, Joan Donovan. I work at Harvard Kennedy School Shorenstein Center as the research director. And I am so excited to have found my people, which is to say that this week is a week of action about disinformation awareness, trying to raise both public awareness, media awareness, public health awareness of the ways in which misinformation, disinformation is impacting our society, but especially looking at particular issues related to race and misinformation. We are so excited to welcome today's guests, who will do a round robin of introductions, because I think today's show, and it's really going to be a whole week of shows, is going to highlight different people that are engaged in disinformation work, disinformation mitigation work in particular, from the perspective of civil society, as well as we're going to feature some researchers later this week and some other folks and journalists as well, who are having a heck of a time lately with the amount of misinformation going around. So I would love to start with introductions. So I'm going to ask you, Erin, to introduce yourself first, and then I will pick someone after that. So welcome, Erin.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Joan. It's just, I'm like so appreciative of the ways that you plugged into this week. For folks watching, my name's Erin. I use she and her pronouns. I am a national organizer at MediaJustice, which is a national organizing and advocacy hub that fights for the digital rights of poor people and people of color. We're making sure that everyone is connected, represented, and free. And I'm just really excited to be a part of this. And I think like the origins of our organization, over a decade ago, I think we started working, to dispel negative stereotypes about Black and brown youth in the Bay Area. And so this work around disinformation and really trying to get our communities as many resources, trainings, information as possible to combat, this harmful misinformation, disinformation spread fits squarely in that, lineage of work that we've been doing. So really excited to be on this panel and to be talking with some of the folks that you'll hear from today.
Thank you so much. And I just want to, let everybody know that MediaJustice was really driving people towards the content for this week, and has been sort of playing the pivotal role of herding the cats over the past couple of weeks of organizing and planning. And so very appreciative of all the work that you've put in with Meghna from United We Dream, who has also been helping to wrangle everything that's going on this week. Meghna, do you want to introduce yourself and your organization?
I would love to. I want to echo the sentiment that it's so great to be in conversation with y'all. Thank you, Joan, for inviting us, Erin for wrangling the cats, and then also, of course, to Nora and Jen, because it's just an amazing panel, folks. So glad to be in good company. My name is Meghna Mahadevan. I am the Disinformation Defense Strategist for United We Dream and United We Dream Action. And we are the largest youth-led immigrant rights organization in the nation, and really fighting for the rights of all immigrants, and particularly focus on undocumented folks. And of course, this administration has not necessarily been so kind to us. So I'm super excited to be here. I think also a fun fact, I don't know if y'all know this, but with the 2016 election, I was actually working at Facebook. So this is a huge turnaround for me, I feel like.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're going to have to get the tea on what's different from the other side then. So yeah, that was a bombshell. You didn't tell us that ahead of time.
I know. I felt this was the right moment to like release it on you after I already won you over.
Yeah, no, I was like, and where do you come from? Well, one of the things I think we all appreciate is when people have had a deep experience, and especially when it comes to the ways in which I think we all can appreciate how an organization or a company like Facebook has done a lot of work to bring tools and connection to different people. We just really wish they'd do more to wrangle some of the misinformation at scale. So speaking of communication, misinformation, Jen, do you want to talk a little bit about Reframe and how y'all are participating in this week of disinformation awareness?
Yes, I would love to. Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Jen Soriano. I use she and they pronouns, and I am with Reframe, as Joan mentioned. And also want to echo that I'm really excited to be here. I think that taking action together against disinformation and being able to raise awareness about what is this thing that people sort of generally know is happening out in the world, just all of these fake news posts, twisted truth, is really exciting to do with this particular formation of organizations, because there's some old collaborations like with MediaJustice, who I have some history with, and then new collaborations that are happening like with PEN America, and getting to meet Dr. Joan, who makes disinformation fighting fun, which I don't think is always the case, that easy to do. So it's really great to be here. And Reframe is a narrative strategy and movement ecosystem building organization, and we're working with the Disinformation Defense League to help equip organizers specifically with the tools that they need to be able to identify disinfo and then also integrate disinformation busting into the campaigns and base building work that they already have going on. So I'm really excited to talk more today about what some of those tools are, and also some of the research work that we've been doing in Florida to be able to deeply embed with organizers there as we head into the elections.
Amazing. I think that kind of localization, not a lot of people understand this about disinformation, because it usually only gets in front of them once it's been through 2 or 3 different local cycles. And so being able to understand how disinformation is local is something that really challenges researchers. And so we really welcome the work that you all do for what it helps us understand. And so very, very thankful for that. And of course, last but not least, PEN America has just, rushed in to fill the void in so many different ways related to how do we get this research out there? How do we get different audiences engaged? Nora, do you want to talk a bit about the work that you all have been doing related to misinformation and disinformation, especially related to the Get Out the Vote campaign? And please introduce yourself, of course.
Sure. Well, it's so great to be here. I have to say, who else would I prefer to be with 8 days before an unprecedented election that truly feels like nothing else I can think of? So I'm Nora Benavidez. I work at PEN America, and I run our disinformation defense work, as well as our media literacy programming. And it's a tall order to make information and the study of information sexy. So it is a testament to the people here that we are mobilizing this many. PEN is an organization that focuses on words and that words matter. And we've always been worried about how words can manipulate public opinion. And I think that in the lead up to any election cycle, there are ways that words manipulate and sway voters. But I'm uniquely worried about the pandemic, the level of civil unrest, and that the climate here has created a kind of flashpoint that voters may not be really aware of. And what I want to do is make them aware and make them feel like they're part of our mobilization and our defense work. So much of the research, the mapping of what misinformation looks like, disinformation looks like, is really powerful. And I think it feels abstract to people. You know, when you talk to everyday people who are my friends and my family, they're just sort of like, how does that come home to me? And so what we're doing is a set of trainings to really kind of try to draw a dotted line that disinformation is a form of voter suppression. And we want to give people tools to feel like if you're a faith leader, if you're a journalist, if you're a voter, you can identify those types of misleading narratives and then hopefully be the stopgap. And so my favorite thing has been working with Jen, because I think that we came from different backgrounds and like one fell in love. I think, Jen, I hope I can out you like this. I'm taking just full credit that we're in love. But we're live, so we're going to roll with it.
Yes. More of this.
And I feel like it's just been great. So we want to meet people where they are, and not in ways that are then patronizing, but are fun and exciting, and give people real tools so that when they are not with all of us right here in Twitter or wherever, that they actually feel like they are armed with something. So it's great to be here.
I appreciate that. You know, one of the things that has been a big struggle in our field, I think, well, one of the reasons why we hired someone on my team like Emily Dreyfus is because researchers don't always know what the lead is, and we don't always know what is going to be important about our research. And so we need people who can translate that research into implementation and actionable steps. And so I wanted to ask Erin and Meghna, if you could just give us a bit of a rundown of the different kinds of events that are going to be happening this week that really are going to give people a sense of how does something like misinformation at scale that platforms have facilitated, how does that touch down in people's everyday lives? How does it become a whole of society problem where doctors are now worried about misinformation as well as journalists, and bringing civil society into the picture here? What are the things that are going to be happening? What are people going to be able to learn about this week with all of the different events you have planned?
Yeah, certainly. I can start, and then Meghna, you can jump in, because I know United We Dream has is going to be featured on a couple of different events happening this week. But yeah, we really wanted to give people a way to plug in and get as much information and resources as possible to identify and limit the impact of misinformation and disinformation in their communities, whether that's thinking twice before sharing something. Penn has really great resources around like how to talk to friends and family about misinformation and disinformation. But we really just wanted a way to like amplify all of that, excuse me, so that people can plug in the way that feels right, whether that's, reading research if that's your jam, or attending a training. We have some of that going on later this week. Or if you have a specific question you want to ask some election disinformation experts, we have a place for you to plug in there too. So we have these conversations with Dr. Joan, obviously every morning, tying everything together. We have a roundtable that's going to be on MediaJustice Facebook Live on Wednesday that is specifically about racialized disinformation and how, what's changed between 2016 and now. And I do want to clarify or make sure it's clear that while the election is a flashpoint, we were hearing from members over the summer who were also, trying to manage disinformation in their communities around the protests and around COVID and around all these different things. And so there's a lot of blurring that happens with these issues, and they all intersect and intertwine with one another. And we want to make sure that those connections are being made throughout this week as well. I'll pass it to Meghna to talk. I think Meghna has a really interesting, and United We Dream has a really interesting event happening around healing, which I think is really important. So I can pass it to them to talk about that. But yeah, we have a ton going on this week.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, I think that this entire initiative is so amazing. So huge kudos to you and MediaJustice for uplifting this. I think as you and Nora mentioned, this moment is just such an intersection of so many different events, right? Like I'm someone who like, I block myself from a lot of different like phone and social media usage. And since the pandemic, I've even like lifted a lot of those barriers just because it feels like such a point of connection when we're all like isolated in many different ways. So I think that it feels like a lot of things are coming to a T, and having this week is really important because I think a lot of people are suffering from different impacts of disinformation and misinformation, but we don't really know like what it is. We don't have a name to it. And so with United We Dream and United We Dream Action, we're running a few different campaigns. One is just like an organic, almost like meme intervention, if I can call it that, where we're trying to disrupt the different memes and like misinformation that's happening via memes and organic content. And we're hyper focused on the Latinx community and on the Spanish speaking community, where there is almost just this, like so many specific targeted campaigns happening. So really trying to disrupt like the way that people are creating associations, the way that people are understanding information. And so part of that is just like a coordinated organic WhatsApp intervention that we're doing. And then another part of that is just running campaigns. So like this week, we're running a pretty big like influencer campaign to try to really reach out and talk to people. I know that even just among my own friends, so many people's like individual lives and family relationships and friendships are affected by disinformation and misinformation, which is why like PEN America made that amazing guide of like, how do you talk to your friends and family? Like, how do we really deal with this? I had friends who've like gotten into fist fights with their other friends. I've had friends whose families have broken apart, like mothers have had like mental breakdowns over these just manipulative campaigns. And so on Thursday, we're holding a full-on session that's just a healing session, a space where people can come in and talk about what's going on in their personal lives because of misinformation as well as propaganda, which is what the Latinx community is more familiar with and calling it, and really figuring out ways that we can heal and move forward. And similarly, on Wednesday, we're doing a town hall with Univision, really trying to make a call to action to everyone to reach out to their family, reach out to your friends. The way that this is like transpiring is just so divisive, and we really just need to heal our relationships off of the internet to really move forward from this. And so that's kind of a lot of what we're organizing, what we're calling to action.
Excellent. So I know that if you head to MediaJustice.org, there is a calendar that's going to be updated as new things emerge. Is there anywhere else that people should be looking? I know the hashtag #DisruptDisinfo on Twitter. Where else should people be looking to stay tuned?
We're putting out a lot of content on Twitter. So at MediaJustice is a great place to look. And I think you can also find the agenda on our Twitter feed there. And then we'll be sharing promotional information for all of the events that are happening this week as well. And also, if you're very, very interested and want to know, who else is participating and what's going on, there's what we're calling a Twitter block party later today, where quite a few folks from both the Media Justice Network and the Disinfo Defense League are going to be coming together to talk about what disinformation looks like in our communities and how we can, mitigate that impact together.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So let's dive in a little bit and talk about this Disinfo Toolkit that Nora and Jen have put together. Do you all want to talk a bit about what's in it and how other people might utilize such an amazing compendium? It's reached the levels of a textbook, I have to say. It's really got everything for everyone, which is to say that I think teachers, if they want to do any kind of work in this space right now, that would be the place I would start for thinking about lesson plans. And so, if you want to talk a little bit about it, I can also, if you want a screen share, I can make you both co-hosts in case that is an option.
That'd be great.
Got you.
Okay, Nora, I'll kick it off. Sound good? All right. And feel free to jump in whenever you want, since we kind of share a brain these days. Just we'll trade off.
And I say textbook with all the love of an educator, but I know that that might sound scary to other people, but it's not. It's really just this. I should have set it up better. It's kind of like a mixtape where, you know, you've really got all the best jams on it. And because there's so much out there to look at that you all really had to think strategically about what you put together. And so I really appreciate it.
Thank you for that reframe, Dr. Joan.
Jen, I saw
the look. I saw the look on your two's face, and you're like, "That can't be good." And I was like, "What?" It's yeah.
It started out so small in our minds is the other thing. So it's funny to hear that. It's great.
Well, there's just so much good stuff out there. No, and I've been telling people, I mean, it's true. It is hefty. And I've been telling people that if this was a hard copy toolkit, it would definitely not be the kind of thing you just like toss into your backpack or your purse while you're heading out the door. It's like a coffee table thing that sits there and it's your reference. And, you know, the reason that Reframe wanted to do something like this from the beginning was that, especially for organizers, I think, and Erin and Meghna, please weigh in if you can identify with this. There is not necessarily one place to go to be able to start to sort out all of these questions around, you know, is there a difference between what we have been calling propaganda and opposition attacks is another way that that organizers think about this type of disinformation that's wielded against the type of work that we're trying to do. You know, is it the same thing? Is it different? Like, what do we do? Where do we start? You know, do we just say, whatever, it's the same thing as always, we're not going to do anything about it? Or do we go to the other side of the spectrum and freak out and, you know, toss all of our eggs into this basket and only combat disinfo? You know, what do we do? And so knowing that we were kind of starting from that place, Reframe wanted to be able to just offer something that's like, okay, as you are doing your organizing work and you're like, what do we do? And here's something that you can actually just go to be able to flip through, and you will find something that is relevant to what you need, knowing that organizing groups and advocacy groups, because also for advocacy groups and activists, don't have a one-size-fits-all need when it comes to fighting disinformation. And so that's where we were coming from with it. And then, you know, out of sort of like the synergistic moment that happened, I kind of put out this call on a leadership council call that we had saying, is anybody else doing this? And Nora was there, like, duh, like, why, yes, Pan America is actually doing all of these media literacy tools and trying to put them together too. And so there was this really synergistic thing that happened where we then locked eyes and said, okay. And that was the beginning of that. And then this whole toolkit was birthed, and there's some sections to it to help people navigate through the mixtape / textbook / coffee table book. And while I'm going to go ahead and just get my screen share ready so that I can share it, and then I'll pass it off to you, Nora, while I do that. Go for it, Nora, if you want to add it.
Oh, great. I'm like, sure, happy to wait. Well, I think, you know, it was very synergistic how we connected. There's so many groups doing amazing work already. And disinformation, at least in the way that I view its insidious nature, infiltrates all of our lives. And so part of what I hope this does is provide experts in other fields a comfort in knowing where to turn to have a little bit of messaging around how they can embed these types of issues, and then principles to fight disinformation in their existing work. And so the Disinfo Action Week that I know Erin and Meghna and MediaJustice are working on is, I think, a great example where the people that might come to this will have an adjacent interest in fighting disinformation, but it isn't their sole focus day in, day out with organizers and activists and voters and other constituents. And so part of what Jen and I really were kind of dreaming about and dreaming up together is how can we put together enough really credible, trusted pieces of content that are really just sort of a starting point. If someone says, how do I embed these messaging points? How do I work with people who might have an interest in this stuff, but need it quickly? And so we tried to, I know Jen's going to kind of walk through the various elements of the toolkit, but we really tried to help people understand first, what are the threats? What does all of this even mean? And then how can we think of building up power and collective power as a way to inoculate and respond to disinformation? So I'll turn it back over to Jen to walk us through it, but it really was born out of just an interest in meeting activists and organizers and advocacy groups where they are in their work already. And not that we're going to suddenly train them up because this is going to be their pivot, but that they can embed it into their current practice. So it's really been an exciting kind of marriage of the marketing, I think the media literacy, and then the defense tools that PEN America offers with what Jen and Reframe do in trying to really provide tools for organizers and for people who are interested in activating others around the country.
And there's a version 2 of this toolkit that is going to be coming out later today, hopefully in time for the town hall. So we will be tweeting a link out to that updated version that has updated messaging guides related to the elections and the post-election counting period and likely protest period. And also there's going to be this amazing resource that Dr. Joan had been working on that's a bunch of case studies on disinformation and misinformation that just, wow. I mean, you got to check out the toolkit just to be able to find a link to that. And really overall, the toolkit, I have to say, it would not be possible without Dr. Jones' work. All of it is really informed, whether people know it or not, the organizations that contributed tools by Dr. Jones' research. So definitely check it out. And I will just do a quick share. I'm not gonna take you through everything. Just want to show everybody what it looks like. Nora gave a really great overview of the particular sections. And then I'll just say that, so it's a PDF because some of the messaging guides are not available online. And so it's internally linked. So the way that you navigate is by clicking on the page numbers in the table of contents to take you to the part of the PDF.
For some reason, I'm only getting a white screen and then I see your cursor, but I'm not seeing the.
Oh, really? You guys aren't seeing the Adobe?
No, just it's like this. No, only your mouse when it moves.
Do you want me to try sharing, Jen?
Let me try it one more time. Oh, because I shared my whiteboard.
Good move. Good. Thank goodness you hadn't been drawing like, things we draw on whiteboards when nobody thinks we're looking.
Exactly.
So, I appreciate that. But if you give us like the 1 minute synopsis on what's in it, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. So there's a combination, I would say, of tools that organizers and advocates are going to want to go to immediately in the next few weeks heading into the elections. And those include some of these introductory tools like the definitions of disinfo and misinfo, and also what to expect this election season, as well as some of the inoculation and response tools, such as people had talked about the how to talk to friends and family who share misinfo, but also tip sheets from PEN America and other organizations on how to handle protest disinfo, COVID disinfo, election disinfo. And then there's also tools for working with journalists, which people will probably need over the next couple weeks. And then there's these messaging guides. So you guys are getting a very raw preview of the version 2, which is not even complete yet, but there's updated messaging guides, everything from a North Star messaging guide that Reframe and Soleil Signals has been working on that's about how to confront the disinformation, but really pivot back towards our North Stars of defending voter rights, defending protest rights, and being able to keep our focus on the issues that we want our politicians to address, as well as Spanish language messaging guides for the elections and beyond. So there's some quick go-to resources there, but then also want to say that everything else in here, I mean, it is kind of accurate to say that it's a textbook, but it's a cool textbook, is really meant to be able to help organizers and advocates be able to do political education, media literacy education for their members and member leaders, and community members and family as we go on, since we know that probably the level of disinformation that we're facing post-elections is only going to increase. So we got to also increase and amp up our ability to train others and how to recognize it and bust through it.
Mm-hmm.
Joan, can I say one quick thing?
Of course.
I know we're coming up on time, but I'm Latina, and I think a lot about the lack of resources in Spanish for the ways that we could otherwise in English think about and combat disinformation. And so it's been critical, I think, from an equity perspective, from a personal perspective. Jen has been incredibly supportive also of how do we embed Spanish language tools? And so there are a lot of bilingual resources in the toolkit. And I just want to flag that because for the people tuning in now, I think it's really critical to be able to know how to have conversations with Spanish language parents, grandparents, family members, those that are really only turning perhaps to WhatsApp or other platforms for news and information and may not know how they're vectors of misinfo. So I'm excited that one of the pieces of this is really trying to walk the walk, that if we are trying to find better ecosystems and trying to curate those ecosystems for people with information, that it includes offering that for Spanish language audiences. Amid everything that I think that every expert here is doing to understand and see that Latinx voters are one of the most uniquely targeted groups this election cycle. So I just had to make that quick plug.
No, I agree with you. And I think that some of the journalism that we've been seeing lately, especially the Boston Globe article that features Adrian from United We Dream, as well as Jacobo Leocona's research from Eckes Labs that's been featured in MIT Tech Review. I think that what we're starting to realize is that disinformation as a tactic is about persuading and manipulating different groups of people. And the way that it does that, which we're going to get into tomorrow, is by finding what those fissures are in different communities and really driving a wedge through them. And so by way of closing out, I just want to present very quickly just a screen share here of we have our new media manipulation casebook, which has a bunch of case studies and methods. But today I just want to call people's attention to this definition that we have on racialized disinformation, which I think we're going to be talking quite a bit about this week, which means racialized disinformation campaigns employ the strategic use of falsified racial or ethnic identities and or focus on race as a wedge issue. And we've definitely been seeing that in Spanish language media, as well as content that is meant to divide the Afro-Latinx community in particular around the meanings of the more recent protests, as well as really trying to make it seem as if different political parties have different, are cutting deals with different racial and ethnic groups. And what we know is a lot of that is pandering. A lot of it is about trying to win over certain kinds of votes. But when political operatives engage in disinformation campaigns, that isn't fair play. That is actually because they know, especially these political operatives, know what the pain points are, and sometimes will steal the legitimacy of different groups by trying to pretend to be them. But at the same time, I think that Only when we can spot these campaigns and call them out for what they are can we get to any kind of authenticity in our political system. And so it's a really fine line to tread, especially as all of us, I think, are definitely on the side of the people, and know that with voting, it's only one thing we can do in terms of having ourselves represented. And in this moment, the ways in which racialized disinformation is being used to manipulate different voting blocks, I think is a travesty. And so we're going to talk this week quite a bit about voter deterrence and suppression and the ways in which information, when it is not flowing through our ecosystem in ways where people have the same access to the same information, and people aren't being, the other thing that's happening is people are being flooded with misinformation. And when they get flooded with misinformation, it gets really hard to tell what is real and what is not real. And the key to misinformation really is that it's trying to trick you. So if it doesn't trick you, it's because you have some kind of skill set or have thought a lot about why you might be served certain information at certain times, and you're not as susceptible to it. But most of us do get tricked at some point with disinformation. Still happens to me, no matter how many different ways I try to look at it. So I want to thank you all for your time today, and just give you all sort of one last minute to say, any old thing you want to say, but hopefully something about this next week that you're excited about, that you hope people will tune into, and then we'll wrap it up from there. Erin, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I just, again, want to thank everyone, all of the different groups that are participating. I think there's more than 30 or around 30 different groups that are participating. And so really excited to have everyone throw down on a week of action like this, hoping that folks tune into all of the events, but particularly really interested in the roundtable that we're holding on Wednesday to really dig into racialized disinformation. And just want to, again, let folks know that you can follow the week by following the hashtag on Twitter, #DisruptDisinfo. Should I pass it to Meghna?
Please.
Want to echo the sentiment. Thanks to everyone here. I think I also want to plug the toolkit. I wish I had that when I was kicking off. And I feel like whether or not you realize it, like, this affects you no matter who you are. And it's important to figure out what the impact is and how to counter that. And with that, I would love to just uplift in general, like, we need to reach out to our family and our friends and the people in our network. Give them a phone call, give them a text message. And we're holding space on Thursday if you want to come and kind of process the way that it's impacting you and your family. Nora?
Jen?
Or Jen?
I want to co-sign on all of that, and just say that I'm really particularly excited about the roundtable and the conversation. I think it's called Canaries in the Mine, the roundtable on racialized disinformation. We at Reframe always talk about how disinfo works because it rides off and piggybacks off of old narratives. And I think communities of color absolutely can and should understand that all the old wedges that have been driven among different communities of color, Black and brown divides, Asian versus Asian anti-Blackness divides, all of those wedges are being exploited by chaos agents who are trying to divide communities of color, sometimes just for disruption, but other times towards right-wing political ends. And so the more that we can understand that as communities of color, I'm hoping the more that we can have a perspective that allows us to unite around combating disinfo and continuing to advance justice agendas, as opposed to having what Meghna was talking about continue to happen, which is, the goal of division seeping into our families and communities. So thanks again, everybody, for all the important work that you're doing this week and always.
Well, I'll make it really short. I'm excited to vote. I am going to do early voting tomorrow. I made my voter plan and I'm sticking with it. I'm so excited. And I'm also excited for what comes after the election, because the fight against disinformation is not just something that we're doing around the election season, but we all can get tricked, as Joan said. And I love, Joan, that you said, even as an expert, you will fall prey to it. I think it humanizes us, and it's good to talk about that. And so I'm excited about the ways that we uplift what everyone is doing to fight this year round, and that come 2021, there is still going to be crisis, and there are still going to be narratives that play on and sow discord. And we have to fight those. So I refuse to be a vector that will believe in and fall for those kinds of misleading narratives. And I believe that we have to all pledge to do that together. So it's great that this week is one of the first catalyzing efforts to come together and to fight together. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So tomorrow we're going to talk about what is a disinformation campaign with Rob Ferris and Yochai Benkler, as well as Jonathan Ong and Jacqueline Mason. So hopefully everybody will come back tomorrow at 11. We'll be doing these all week long. Thank you all for your big smiles this morning. It's definitely warming my heart on this very, very cold October day in Massachusetts. I very much wish I was in California right now.
Me too.
I know.
Come with me, Joan.
I know. I'm just California dreaming today, just because of the it just doesn't get this raw. So everybody, see you on the internet. Much love.
Bye.
Have a great rest of day.